When the trailer of Bramayugam dropped, a lot of people compared it to another Indian film, Tumbad. And there are multiple reasons for that. First, that they both belong to the same genre, folk horror. And over that, both these films are highly well made. But I think the biggest similarity between them is that both of them are true art without any compromise. And the consistency of that happening in Kerala is the power of Malayalam cinema. Let's talk about it. Hello guys, I'm Nona Prince and I know Bramayugam is supposed to be watched in theaters. It is meant for that, but sadly I couldn't and I finally watched it on OTT platform. Now one thing to note is that personally I'm not very drawn to this particular genre. And there are reasons for it which I've talked about in the past. I feel this genre has become very reductive over the years, especially in the mainstream, where it's more about the shock value than telling a story. Of course, there are some outliers which use the properties of the genre really well, and I have seen them. But the whole idea of having a ghost or a supernatural being, without any meaning, always feels very surface level to me. But from the trailer of Bramayugam, I think it was clear that there is more to all this. And also, having seen the director Rahul Sadasivan's last film, Bhutakalam, I knew there will be more to just having horror elements. Now, I did have my reservation on the ending of that film. You can check out my review. But it was an experiential horror, which was tackling the theme and exploring it through this setting. And it was not about just scaring us. So that being established about the director, I knew there will be more than just horror. It explored the cycle of power and oppression, and that too with just 6 on-screen characters. And we see the tide of the power shifting from one character to the other, hinting that there is no clear hero and the villain, as we were assuming. All of these characters are part of that cycle, and they just keep shifting their places. The film starts with a clear commentary on the caste system, how the innocent, the people at the bottom, always end up suffering in this power struggle. And that's not restricted just to humans. Even a supernatural being is part of that cycle. From being oppressed to becoming an oppressor, there is no end to it. And the cycle continues with the arrival of the colonist. And we see in the film that the themes it's exploring is greater than the plot. Yes, we do get a backstory. We get an explanation about this house, the supernatural being, how it all works. And we know that the story is based on some ancient texts and fables. The concept and the design is coming from our own Indian culture. At no point it feels inspired from the West. But the intrigue is not in these plot details. I don't really have the questions about the powers or how the myth works, but I'm more interested in the idea the film is propagating. The choices the filmmakers took, first making it all black and white, but not just making it black and white. It's not just about 2 colors, but showing various shades of it throughout the visuals. That was making the visuals stand out more and have more depth within them. Because often when you do this, the image can become very flat. Sound is the most important tool in a horror film, and you have to get it right. And this film gets it right. Without even showing anything, just with the sound, you can make the audience feel stressed. I love the growl they had for the goblin. Now they also chose to tell this story with just 6 on-screen characters, and that too all happening in one place. And that's a very hard job to pull off, and they did really well. Now I did feel the editing was off at moments. When you're doing something like this, it's hard to take the plot ahead, and sometimes the film would just cut from a scene and show us the house and some exterior shots, and then we cut back, it's some different scene, the characters are somewhere else, which threw me off a little bit. Now I knew there was talk about that the film is slow, but I would say being 2 hours 19 minutes, it went really quick for me. I didn't feel the length at all. But definitely this is a film which requires you to be patient. It's not a film that will give you something every 5 minutes. The joy is in the experience of it. Definitely the commercial appeal of the film may be less if you compare it to a Tumbad. Now both are horror thriller, but I would say this film is more of a horror drama and Tumbad was more of a horror thriller. But that isn't supposed to mean that one is better than the other. Definitely a shout out to the production design, the costuming, especially for a supernatural being, the goblin, those prosthetics, those black eyes, oh my god, it was haunting. Even the house to make it look old. All of these, adds to the experience of the film. Now talking about the performances, before we come to the mega star, first let's talk about Arjun Ashokan. It was pretty much, his film because we followed the film through his character. And it's always very tricky, to be in a horror film playing the guy who has to get scared, because sometimes it can be very overdone. If you don't get the right pitch for the film, it can break the film almost. And I think he did a really good job. From actually scared scaring us in Romancham to getting scared in this film. Then Sidharth, I may have seen him before, but I think this time his performance made a mark for me. And even Amal then Manikanda did a good job with whatever they had got. Now coming to megastar Mammootty, I think from the first look it was clear the menace in his face. I think the black and white look just enhanced it. There was even in his body language, and you didn't need to show anything. Just by looking at him, you could feel it. Now I've seen his old film Vidyan, and there were definitely a lot of callbacks to that film with those horns stuck there, and also theme wise it's very similar. And even his role in this film was not just negative, but it was almost as if a supporting actor. If you notice, before the main climax takes place, he's off screen, so it's not like everything is about his character. He is present throughout the film. He's willing to do a character like this for the sake of the story. And this film in his filmography is another feather, and it's also for Malayalam cinema. Yet again, to even think that you can make such film with a megastar in such a role, and then the audience also accepts it. Only Malayalam cinema and the Kerala audience can pull this off. On the other hand, if you take example of Tumbad, it took 6 years to make it, and that doesn't include writing and everything. Only shooting part took them so long because they didn't have funds. And even then they made a great film, but they didn't do well at the box office. Of course, today it is considered a classic, a cult, but it didn't get the same love at the time of release. And that shows why Malayalam film industry is so special. They don't just have directors with unique voices, but also the people to support these voices and an audience to back it all. They didn't need to modify their film, make it more commercial. It's not about those jump scares, those cheap thrills, making it VFX heavy unnecessarily. They didn't have to try to make it big just for the sake of it. The fact that they don't have to do anything of such sorts and tell a story the way they want to is the power of Malayalam cinema. And that's what they hold over other industries, the creative freedom. That's what enables you to make great art. And we also see the importance of that freedom in the film itself. What your life becomes when you're enslaved. When you're just stuck at one place, you start losing your memories, you start losing your identity. And to get all of that back, you need to own yourself. You need to own your freedom. And that's what the makers of this film have. Now the film did really well at the box office in Kerala, and it was supposed to be a pan-India release dubbed in multiple languages, but I don't know what happened. But in this video I talked about a Malayalam film that can go pan-India because it has all the elements. Check it out here. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you next time.